Welcome back to another episode of Allen Police Behind the Badge. We're your hosts, Officer Sam Rippamanti and Alexus Birmingham.
And today our special guest is Officer Chris Hester. Thank you for coming on today.
Hello. Hey, thanks for having me.
Hey, Chris. So tell us a little bit about what you do for the police department.
So I'm currently the training coordinator, and I've been up there for a little over 3 years, and I've been with the department 19 years and 2 months. And
Who's counting?
Yeah, right, exactly. Who's counting? And, originally I had no desire to be in training. And it's interesting how I came to this position because everyone was like, hey, Delio's going to leave. And we kind of traded places because now he's in community relations and I was an SRO, but in between, I was in community relations before going to SRO. And I said, no, I like doing what I'm doing. It was Arsenal at the time. He was the sergeant in internal affairs. Hey, come up here, come work for me and all that. And he just kept harping on me. And then finally I was like, all right, I'll do it. And 2 people had put in for it, and then the other person withdrew. So I saw the chief in the parking lot one day, and he said, hey, congrats on being the new training coordinator. And I said, no, sir, I haven't had the board yet. No, he goes, you're the training coordinator.
That's one way to find out.
That's how that happened. But no, it's a great position and enjoy what I do.
So, tell me some interesting stuff over your 19 years. That's a lot of experience.
Yeah, well, first of all, I think we need to talk about how me and Sammy met.
I remember well.
Because this is the best story. So I'm in the report room, and I'm at 19 years. Are you at 17 years?
Yes, May will be 18.
Okay, so I'd been on the streets for 2 years, right? And definitely not a senior officer at that point, but Sammy sits down next to me, and he was in field training, I think.
Yeah, I was in field training, and I was stressing.
Yeah, for the listeners, back then, our report writing room had 4 computers. It was 4, workstations, and they're all side by side, just in one long row. And I'm sitting down and I'm typing a report, a DWI report, something along those lines. And Sammy's typing, with one finger on each hand. He's kind of pecking away there. And he goes, Officer Hester. And that shows you how informal it was at the time, because we're definitely not like that with each other now. He goes, how do you spell holler? And I was like, wait, what? Holler. And I was like, down in the holler? And like HOLLER. And he goes, no, she was hollering at him. She was. He was writing, I guess, a domestic report. So that was our first interaction.
It was a family violence report. I remember it. And she was hollering at him, and I had to type it in the report. And he's like, well, why don't you use another word? Like, she screamed at him. She yelled.
Yeah.
Like, that might make more sense.
I started giving him some options. But I'm from Salina, so I was like, okay, I can definitely relate to this. So that it was like instant bond.
That was back when it was 4 officers and 1 supervisor on night shift.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there was 4. We call it 4 and 2 being the supervisors, and they would just cut the city, into 4 quadrants kind of, and we each had a corner. And if it was on a major call, we'd all be in the same place looking around going, oh, something else happens, So that shows how far we've come as far as, just how many officers we have on the street. But it also means we worked really close with each other, because if there are only 2 of you on one side of the city, on that side of Highway 75, we're pretty much going to every call together if it's a 2-man call, and most of them are. So we've got a lot. I have a favorite. It might be one of the same ones that you're thinking of too.
Let's hear it.
So my apartment was broken into. This is going back to 2008. And
so that night, we're working night shift, and that back then shift didn't start till 10 p.m. So we worked 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. And Chris, I remember he's like, man, I'm going to take off early, since at that time we had 5 officers. We had a rover. So if we had 5, one of us could leave early if we ever wanted. So I remember Chris was like, I'm going to take off early and go home and play some video games. And he was a single guy at the time, so he had all this extra time to do stuff. And so he left early and got home and everything. He didn't have any video games. Somebody had, we laugh now. At the time, it was pretty sad. We were pretty upset, all for him. Somebody broke into his apartment and stole all of his electronics.
Yeah, I'd moved into that apartment about a week prior. So I didn't have time to get the renter's insurance going. Plus, you're working night shift patrol, so you're sleeping when everything's open, right? So I'm like, just get my stuff in there. I barely unpacked, about halfway unpacked maybe. And someone must have knew that I worked at night, But anyway, long story short, I come home and I see my door cracked about that far, and you can see where they pried it. I'm like, here we go. So I go in, and I mean, if it wasn't nailed down, it was gone. They didn't take clothes or anything, but I play guitar, so electric guitar, multiple guitars were taken, TV, video games, computer, digital camera, all that stuff. So that's the precursor. We have to tell that part of the story to tell this next part of the story on how this came to be. So we were working, I guess I would have been on the east side. So I don't know if you were on the east side too to back me up or if you crossed over. I don't remember that part.
I remember getting I don't know back then if it was an MDC message or a text message, but I got a message from you said, hey, my apartment complex, like now. So I fly over there to the apartment complex to back Chris up.
Yeah, this is a couple weeks maybe after the incident had happened, and it really made me empathetic, which I already was. But when you have it happen to you, it's so violating to have someone come into your space. And, I wanted to make sure that it didn't happen to anybody else. So that's part of my district. So I would go and, this is the Crown Vic days. So you'd black your vehicle out or, park under where there's not a street light. And I'm watching and I see a car come into the apartment complex, and the guy parks at, building 14 and cuts his lights off and gets out, and he's like sneaking down, passing building 16, 17, going right toward building 18, which is where I lived. And I'm just watching him. I think that's the moment where I'm sending Sammy a message on the MDC, hey, you may want to head this way. And I was watching and observing. So he goes, and this guy crouches down next to an apartment window, and it looks like he's messing. I mean, from the observer standpoint, you would think this guy's breaking into an apartment or doing something he shouldn't be doing. So he's messing with the window seal. I'm pretty far away, maybe 40, 50 yards away, and he can't see me. So I'm waiting, and he messes with it a little bit, and then he sneaks back to his car, gets in his car, and by that time, I'm rolling behind him. We're going to try to knock him down and get a traffic stop, and at least see what he's up to. And that's when Sammy backed me up.
It's suspicious behavior. So I think he had a traffic violation too when he was leaving, and so Officer Hester pulls him over, and he's like, all right, it's good cop, bad cop here. So Chris is going to be stern, and then I'm going to come in and be like, hey man, it's okay, and try to get him to make sure he's not really trying to break into houses. But it's almost like the movies when I get up there and all of a sudden I'm feeding off of Chris, and we're both like, what are you doing? We know you're trying to break into that apartment. And this poor kid, he's a teenager. We say kid, he's probably 17.
Yeah, 17 or 18. And, all the signs were there of nervousness. So, he's like shaking, voice is quivering, and which amplifies the suspicion, right? I'm like, okay, I saw you drive in, cut your lights out. You walked 3 or 4 buildings at 3 a.m. in the morning. What are you doing messing with someone's window? Like, none of this adds up. You weren't just visiting a friend kind of thing. And then Sammy's jumping in. I feel bad now because I think he ended up crying. The kid starts crying.
He finally breaks down, and we're like, uh-oh, he's not a burglar.
Yeah. And he goes, sir, can I be honest with you? My girlfriend broke up with me, and I'm just leaving her a love note and a mixtape of our favorite songs for the CD. And I was like, no, you weren't. And, because I'm still trying to get him to admit, that
because we didn't believe it at the time. It was like you're messing with windows at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, who does that? Yeah. Apparently, if you're struck and heartbroken, you do. So we let him go with a warning, and just kind of, hey, don't come back doing this kind of stuff, or if you do anything like that, come back in the daytime. Of course, we go back and look. Sure enough, on the windowsill, it's like 2. I don't remember the girl's name. There's a love note, and there's a CD.
And a CD with a rock on top, holding
all their favorite songs. There's still a chance they worked it out. Who knows? Maybe they're listening. It
ended on a good note with the young man. We had a good conversation after that and explained to him what, why it looked suspicious, and he understood. And then we tried to offer a little bit of advice on his relationship. And so it all ended well. So let's talk a little bit about what a training coordinator does for the department.
Yeah. So initially when they approached me about it, because I liked what I did as an SRO, and especially in community relations, because it's a different side of policing. It's Sergeant Felty used to say it's easier to prevent a crime than to solve a crime. So get out there and prevent some crime, right? And I kind of had it in my head that as an SRO, we're doing good with these kids, mentoring them, and I really wasn't ready to leave that, I don't think. But what made me change my mind is I was thinking about, okay, how important is training to what we do, to the police department, to the city, to the citizens? It's the most important thing. If you don't have well-trained officers, then you don't have the best service that you can get. So when I thought about it that way, that's what made me think, okay, being a training coordinator, because your heart has to be in it. You have to believe in what you're doing. And so I said, okay, I'll do it. And I dove into it. So really, in a nutshell, it's making sure that the officers are equipped to encounter anything that they're going to encounter on the street. And it could be everything from in-service training, where we use our in-house instructors to teach things, or we bring in someone from the outside. And we get requests all the time. An officer will say, hey, can you bring in this organization or this group? We'd like to have some training in this. And, it's working along those lines. And then, there's state compliance, making sure that everybody has their, hours of continuing education. But really, that's what it is. It's supplying the officers with their needs from a training perspective.
How long is the training? How long does it get for? From new recruits or the lateral process?
Yeah, that just changed recently, and we had some state changes as well. So for those that's listening, she's referencing if we have someone that comes in and they're a new recruit, they have no police experience whatsoever, and they want to become a police officer. And there's a pathway to that, and then we'll hire one of the agencies that we'll hire someone and support them while they're doing that. So you'll get paid as we sponsor you to go to the academy. And that's about, currently the academy's 29 weeks. So we'll bring you on a couple weeks early just to make sure that everything's ready to go. We'll do some things with physical preparation, physical fitness, because that's a big aspect of what we're doing to kind of prepare them for that. And then once they get out, they have 6 weeks with me where I do more training. We host a mini academy. The different agencies will call them different things, but we just call it mini academy, and then that prepares them for field training. And then if you're an out-of-state lateral or an in-state lateral, there's different requirements for them depending on what you're doing. So out-of-state lateral would be 6 weeks with us, and that's after they've taken the state exam. There's all these courses that they have to take to prepare them for the state exam, including in-person. So they add training, every 2 years when they go to the legislative session. They usually add training requirements, which is a good thing because you can't train enough. But there's different processes for all that. Right. So I kind of coordinate all three of those things. And Jason, our other training coordinator who just started helping with that, he's taken a lot of the in-service training, which includes block training. And that's just where we take officers and we have them, train for a 40-hour period. We consider that their work week. And they go and they do their firearms training, defensive tactics training, all that. So there's a lot of moving pieces to it.
Do we have any openings right now?
We have 3.
Oh, we do, really?
We do.
You know of any test dates coming up or anything like that?
Well, we have an academy coming up June. So for someone that wants to get into it and they're not an officer, June 10th is the academy start date. We use the Plano Richardson Academy, partner with them, and we kind of do tests on an as needed basis. When we got hired, you'd have 300 people show up, and you'd have one test, and then for several months there wouldn't be another test. And now, as Laura receives interest, Laura's our background investigator, one of them. She'll set up tests to kind of accommodate 3 or 4 people that have put in for it.
Now we know what you do for the department, but tell me a little bit about yourself. Who's Chris Hester?
Yeah, so I grew up in Salina, so I haven't strayed that far. And I lived there. Yeah.
State champion.
Sammy lived there for a bit. Lived there till I was 19 and moved out. I was raised by my grandparents. They're both passed now, but I lived what I think is a different childhood than most kids just because my parents were so much older. Mm-hmm. And I spent all my time going to antique shops and listening to Merle Haggard, and everyone else had, their parents are in their, 20s when they're elementary school and all that. And, mine are in their 50s. And by the time you get to high school, they're older. But no, I wouldn't change any of that. So I grew up fishing a lot. We had a single wide trailer at Lake Texoma that we go to pretty much every weekend and all summer. And that's kind of what connected me to Sammy because, after the whole how do you spell holler thing. And I knew he liked to fish because no one speaks like that and not like to fish. I grew up running jugs on Texoma, catfishing, all that, crappie fishing. Mm-hmm. But I always wanted to be a police officer. It was all I ever wanted to do. And I blame Andy Griffith because growing up, my grandpa, we watched all those shows, Green Acres and Petticoat Junction. Of the younger listeners have no idea what I'm talking about. But yeah, I watched Andy Griffith and Cops a lot. So you get lured into the action of Cops and you're like, oh, it's like this all the time. then you become one. And you're like, it's not like this all the time at all.
You come to Allen, where in the wintertime we're counting the rabbits
Yeah.
at night.
Yeah.
Because it's
How many
so
bobcats
quiet.
you see in the alley? No, which is a good thing.
Old Allen.
But it comes in waves, and you do get to experience all that, and just not as it's portrayed on TV. So mentally, I always just prepared myself that this is what I wanted to do. I just didn't know where it would take place, and I sold insurance for 3 years, 18 months with Nationwide and 18 months with Farmers Insurance, and learned a lot. But I was like, this is not for me. I don't really care for being in an office. And here I am 19 years later,
In and
sitting in an office, doing training. Exactly. So yeah, I came full circle. But I think it prepared me a lot. But as soon as I turned 21, I just started applying, and I applied for Allen. I applied for another agency that I won't mention. And Allen gave me the job offer first. And it's funny because Laura was the background investigator at the time who hired me. And then she was my field training officer, so my FTO. And then now we work together. So she's the background investigator again. And then I'm the ones that train the employees that she hires. So
That's awesome.
So you play the guitar. What other hobbies you got? I know of one.
yeah, there's one. The rumors are true. Word got around. I kept that secret for a long time. So no, I'm a magician, and I'm a professional magician now. I can say that. But I used to just love magic. So when I was a kid, I saw a magic show on TV. It's called World's Greatest Magic. And it came on every Thanksgiving around that time, right? So I'd seen it one year, and the next year I knew it was going to come on. So I'm going to put a VHS tape on and record it. So I recorded it over a karate tournament that I had. Like, a childhood memory's gone because I recorded this TV show. But I used to watch this tape all the time. And, I didn't know how any of these guys did this stuff, but it was phenomenal to me. I knew it was sleight of hand, and it's a performing art. And I always just kind of did it as a hobby on the side. So I become a police officer, and there's a different persona when you get to work. There's an assertiveness to it, and there has to be. So I never went around saying, hey, I do magic tricks, pick a card, right? That kind of stuff. And I can't remember when the first, I don't know, when word spread, it spreads like wildfire. Once one officer knows, then everyone's like, hey, show me some magic. Hey, you do magic tricks? Show me something.
The first time I remember seeing you do magic, we were doing a Tippecop for Special Olympics. And we were at Cheddar's, and he had these little red balls in his hand, and he's walking around tables, and I'm like, what is he doing with those? Next thing you know, they're disappearing, and I'm locked in. Like, I forget what I'm doing. I'm supposed to be serving drinks and helping out, and I'm just following him, watching him do magic at all the tables, because it was the coolest thing to watch. The sleight of hand with those little red balls. I mean, I think it's sleight of hand. Maybe they really disappeared. I don't know.
So yeah, Sergeant Felty, our supervisor at the time in community relations, we used to do Tippecop every year in, benefit Special Olympics. And I said, hey, can I do some magic? Because I think I could really, it'll help, just with the entertainment aspect and the tips and everything. I don't care what you do. Go ahead. Sure. So, I forgot about that. Walk up to a table. If you walk up to a table as a magician anyway, it's always awkward, right? It's like, hey, you guys want to see a magic trick? No, we're eating. Okay, thank you. All right, well, go off to the next one. But now here's a cop approaching the table to do a magic trick, right? So they kind of couldn't say no at that point. But no, it went really well. And I think that was one of the times where the secret was out. And then that was long before I became a school resource officer. So by that point, I did magic all the time. So I would do magic for the kids. I even put together a program while I was at SRO, and it was called Make a Good Informed Choice Magic, right? Came up with the acronym. And so we did shows and this was kind of the beginning of COVID, because I remember performing with a mask on, till the kids got in and everyone was separated. But we did full magic shows for the kids, just teaching them safety things, how to make good informed choices. A lot of what we did in community relations, because we go to the schools and the daycares and do all the safety talks. So it was very similar to that. So honestly, I could say without community relations, I don't think anything would have led me up to this point. Like, I don't think I would be doing magic 20 years ago had I not gone through this path, other than a hobby. Right.
Yeah. So where are you at in your magic now? Like, what are you doing with it now?
So about 14 years ago, I started doing magic. I say professionally, to on the side, someone could hire you to perform for them. Did a lot of corporate work, a lot of kids' birthday parties. too many to count probably. And but that led me to things like performing for the Dallas Cowboys. I performed for Ross Pro Jr., Hillwood Airways, Hilton. I mean, they're like corporate companies that will hire you to go and perform magic. And that's really how I honed a lot of my magic skill, because you perform for these people, and there's some CEOs that will just say, okay, show me what you got, impress me, right? It's not your typical magic audience where you go up and it's a family and they're eager to see what you do. So you have to get really good, to perform for those those kind of people. So I just kept following my passion, and so we recently opened a magic venue up in Oklahoma. So I do magic on the side outside of this, and it's kind of like having two full-time jobs, but neither of them really feel like work,
Oh, wow.
Right.
That sounds exhausting.
It is.
So we've talked a lot about it, and I know for everyone that's listening, you can't really see it, but do you have any magic you could do for us?
Yeah. Does anyone happen to have a deck of cards? Oh, look, I just happen to have some right here.
Hey, what do you know?
I think life takes you down a path, right? Sometimes we don't expect it. I met my wife working for the Allen Police Department, right? And I think back, if I would have went with that other agency, let's say that other agency gave me the job offer, I wouldn't have the kids that I have now, I wouldn't have the friends that I have now. I mean, you can call that what you will, but I think destiny, fate. So I'm going to try something. And for the listeners, I'm holding a deck of cards here, and I'm going to do this for you.
Okay.
So Alexus, I want you to, in a deck of cards, there's high cards and there's low cards. Okay. And I want you to just go instinctively, so just like subconsciously, don't think about it too much, but I want you to choose one of them. Now, I'm not going to eliminate. So if you say high cards, I won't say, oh, we'll eliminate the high cards if I want you to take a low card. Like whatever you choose is what we're going to use.
Okay.
Okay. So if you say high cards, we'll keep the high cards. If you say low cards, we'll keep the low cards. Doesn't matter to me. Which one would you like to keep?
High cards.
She wants to keep the high cards. It could be 7, 8, 9, 10, Jack, Queen, King, and then the low cards would be Ace, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, somewhere along those lines. Doesn't really matter, because we're going to take it a step further. So of the high cards, so let's say, just to be sure, let's say 8, 9, 10, Jack, Queen, King. Is that fair to say those are high cards?
Yeah.
Yes. And I wouldn't expect you to pick the Ace of Spades because it's on the front of the deck. It's the one that she can see right now. And it's also the most common card that people select. So if I said name a card, you said Ace of Spades, and I could predict that. Not as impressive. But of the high cards, there's 8, 9, 10, Jack, Queen, King. Which one would you like to use?
Am I supposed to tell you?
Yes.
9.
The 9.
Yes.
Okay. So of the 9, there's clubs, hearts, spades, and diamonds. 2 of them are red, 2 of them are black. Okay. Would you like to use a black 9 or a red 9?
Red.
The red 9. So of the red 9s, and this is completely fair, there's the heart or the diamond. And it's completely up to you. Which one would you like to use?
Heart.
So there's the 9 of hearts. Do you want to change your mind?
Nope.
Okay. So she just picked the 9 of hearts. What drew you to the 9 of hearts?
Just chose the card.
She just chose it. So just you didn't have any conscious thought about it, right? It's not your favorite card. You just It just felt right in the moment. Because there's something interesting about the 9 of hearts. We're going to come back to that.
Okay.
But on the back of the cards, it has some things written on the back.
Oh my gosh.
So on the back of the Ace of Hearts, for example, it says Grand Prairie. Because any of us could have worked there, right? Chief Dye came from there. There's a history there. But you didn't choose that one. This one says Frisco. That would be the 8 of Hearts. You were one off. Frisco was actually the other agency that I applied for when Alan hired me.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
So you were one off from choosing that one. You could have chose Richardson, which would have been the 6 of clubs. I'll go through these pretty quick. There's Plano, which is the 5 of clubs. Garland is the 5 of hearts. Grapevine, Carrollton. You can see they're all different. Royce City. There's Farmersville. It was actually tough to find 52 towns in this area to fill out an entire deck of cards. If there's Waxahachie, that would have been the Ace of clubs. Highland Park, you could have gone with the 8 of diamonds. You can see they're all different. There's no duplicates. There's no other 9 of hearts. But you picked the 9 of hearts. And I think life is an interesting way of leading us to a place.
No way that says Alan on the phone.
And it does. So on the back of the 9 of Hearts, City of Allen.
Wow. I'm a little lost here. What just happened?
For those that listening, go watch the YouTube video and watch that. I'm not sure how this happens, but
she's going back and rethinking, like,
Yeah,
did he make me choose
watch
the high
this
cards?
back
Did he
and
make me
see what
choose the-
happened. Yeah, it's kind of like the one when we were in Chipotle and you spelt my name using Wikipedia. Was kind of
Yeah. So that was random.
that was a really
That was kind of our
strange-
first meeting. We had met in passing, but
Yes.
you know, me, you and Sammy all had lunch together at Chipotle.
Mike Delio.
And Delio was there, and
Yes.
even them, they were kind of like, "Hey, we don't really see you do magic all that much at work."
Yeah.
Right? It's like, "'Cause I'm working. Show us something."
And he so happened to have a deck in his pocket too.
So you have to always be prepared.
But yeah, that one was a pretty cool trick. You guys need to go and watch a show.
Oh, so one of the best experiences with Chris's magic at work. So we do our Citizen Police Academy twice a year, and one of the nights it's DWI investigation, traffic investigation night, where we bring in volunteers that have participated in Citizen Police Academy in the past, and it's very monitored. We drive them there, we take them home, but we actually they drink, and then they go in and we actually do field sobriety testing, so our citizens get to see the effects of what alcohol will do. Well, we'd let them have a few drinks in a controlled environment, and then we'd bring Chris in to do magic before we took them, and mind's blown in that room. But Chance Graves would be in there because he was one of the chaperones for that, and he's completely sober on duty. And I think his mind was blown usually more than the people drinking.
Yeah. Chance is always looking over the shoulder of the drinkers, and I would just see his eye, wait, do that again, wait. I'm like, who am I performing for here?
And he would get so mad because he couldn't figure it out.
And the more they drink, the easier the magic gets, for me at least, right? When you're sober, it's a little bit tougher, but no, Chance is just falling, wait, what want to catch you? And then it becomes a challenge because Chance is very analytical. He's the puzzle solver, right?
Yeah, but he never figured them out as far as I know.
Yeah. He came up to a show recently, and I got his sons up on stage.
What's the name of your theater?
Hester's Theater of Magic. And that's just a tribute to my grandfather. So growing up, he was a mechanic, so he quit school at about 7 years old, at 3rd grade or so, to go work on his grandma's farm. And that's how he learned to fix trucks and tractors, because his grandparents, they needed help and something would break down, and he would be looking over his grandpa's shoulder trying to figure out, how does this work? So I always say he's the smartest man I ever met for, being, I don't want to say uneducated, but leaving school at 7 years old. And he was self-employed. He did his own taxes. He could read, write, all that. And he was brilliant. He could fix anything. I mean, he used to have trophies in the back of his automotive shop. And I asked him one day, I said, "Daddy, what are the trophies for?" He goes, "Well, that was a race car that I worked on, and they won first place, so they gave me a trophy for that." He's worked on airplane engines. People would bring him all kinds of stuff to work on. But his automotive shop was called Hester's Rebuilders. And I thought, well, if I open a place, what would you call it? Just Hester's Theater. But I tack on of magic so people know what it is.
That's pretty cool. And his shop's, it was in downtown Salina for a long, long time.
Yeah, up until a couple of years ago. So my uncle, my grandfather passed away in 2010. And that was right when I was about to go in community relations. And I can say this for the listeners on how much work feels like family. So Sammy, Sergeant Felty, I think Bob at the time, maybe Chance, came to the funeral or the visitation. And that, it's hard for anybody to go through that. That was the hardest time of my life. And I'm going through this pivotal moment, in my career. I'm going to go to this other unit. And I didn't really know these guys all that much, other than I knew Sammy probably better than all of them, but I hadn't really worked with the other ones. And there they were, So that meant a lot.
So speaking about the community, if you could tell our viewers or the city of Allen one thing, what would it be?
I would say thanks for the support, because we've been so blessed in a police department that for the majority, we've had so much support throughout the years. And even in times where on a national scale, that hasn't been the case. It's always been the case here. You get people coming up to your window all the time when you're on patrol, knocking on the window. I just want to say thank you for your service. I want to buy your meal, That makes a huge difference. It really does. So I would just say thank you. I mean, for making this 19-year career, enjoyable, safe. I feel relatively safe on the streets of Allen. We've got amazing coworkers for backup, but just the citizens as well. And then from a training standpoint, from a training coordinator standpoint, I would just say that it's an amazing department. One of the best trained in the country, I would say. And I think that has a trickle-down effect. I think that, that affects the quality of life here. And we couldn't do it without the resident support.
Is there anything new to your unit? Anything as far as the hiring process?
Yeah, we've got a lot of changes just from Chief coming in, and he's ambitious, and he's got a lot of good ideas, a lot of a good vision on where he wants to take the police department. We've already implemented a lot of those changes, and we have a new police department coming down the pipeline, and we're going to implement a lot of things that'll give us a little more freedom on scheduling, as far as because right now we use a lot of in-house venues, but we also use off-site locations for some training. But we're going to have everything from our own defensive tactics mat room, a permanent mat room where you don't have to put the mats out to train. They're just always there, kind of a jiu-jitsu style. Everything from virtual reality, use of force simulators, all that is kind of in the plans. From a fitness standpoint, a big part of the police training overall, our fitness initiative, which got talked about, I think, in both episodes, it has made a huge difference in the equipment. We just opened the other police gym, the CrossFit gym. So now we have one at the police department that we can train at, and then we have the offsite. So a lot of those big changes. And then just as far as standards go, raising standards, for the new hires that are coming in, because we want the best. And, when you have the best, you're going to give the best service to the citizens.
So earlier you mentioned our new police headquarters. And we just want to remind everyone that our groundbreaking will be on February 19th. So we're all pretty excited about that.
Chris, thank you for coming on today and talking to us, showing us a little magic.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Figure out how you do that before it's over with. But
enjoy the mystery.
Thank you, everyone, for listening or watching today. If you want to learn more about upcoming events, go to allenpolice.org.
And make sure to like and subscribe. And if you have any questions, leave them down in the comments below.
We'll see you next time.